All men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights.
Life, liberty, and the pursuit of. If liberty means anything at all, it means the right to tell people what they do not want to hear.
Make America great again.
The Big Mig.
Welcome back to the Big Mig Show. Of course, I'm your host, Lance Miliancho, with my co-host, George Ballantine, my ride or die. Tip of the spear is how we do it on this show, because, you know, if liberty means anything at all, it means the right to tell people what they do not want to hear. And that's the plan every single episode of the Big Mig Show. We're going to bring you the right guests, the facts, the sauce, the evidence. Call it whatever you will. We're not mainstream media. It's not how we do it.
We're going to bring him the goods.
You guys know that. George.
What?
What's up?
I said we're going to bring him the goods.
Going to bring them the goods. It's how we're going to do it, you know, because it's better to be a warrior in a garden than a gardener in a war. And that's our plan. Hopefully, but through that process, we'll educate you guys and unify the country, because division and chaos, it's what they want. They want to make sure that, you know, we're not paying attention. Like, for example, today I noticed, let's release the alien files. My opinion is because probably there's too much focus on the Epstein files. So now all of a sudden we're going to bring aliens into the mix. We're going to admit the existence of aliens further. A lot of people have been talking about that. Seems to be a technique of this administration and many others. It's just the redirection.
I have to disagree
you guys,
with you.
Common sense is not so common as George likes to say. And common sense would tell you that the timing on that seems unusual. And I've said it all along. If you really want to fix this thing, if you want to win the midterms, then start making some arrests. And if the people you have in the administration can't handle that, well, then fire their asses. Enough's enough. Let's get down to the business of what we need to do, and what we were promised of draining the swamp. Now, if you like the show, here's the homework. Hit the follow button, hit the like button, make some comments. Let's propel that Rumble algorithm. Let them see how much you guys like the show. Leave as many comments on this show as you can. We've got a great guest today. I'm excited about that. But before we kick it off, of course, we got to thank our sponsors, because they make the show all possible. I'm talking about our friends over at Genesis Gold Group. You know, George and I love our crypto. If you caught the Crypto Power Hour today at 7 a.m., that's the #1 crypto show on Rumble. But we also love our gold and silver. You always want to have a backup plan. You always want to diversify. None of this is financial advice. But if you're going to buy gold and silver, you want to go to somebody that's been in the business for decades. That's our friends over at Genesis Gold Group. What I'm holding up is this 62.2 gram prepper bar, perforated and easily broken down in your choice of 3 separate denominations to fit a multitude of needs. As you can see, when I tilt the bar, there's a small, a medium, and large. You can snap off a small piece to make the payment. $40 trillion in debt. Congress and the judiciary doesn't want tariffs. I don't know how they're going to settle the debt. They just keep spending. Here's the solution. You can hold these. They can't take them. You can stick them in a sock drawer, an underwear drawer, your safety deposit box. And I don't care whether it's for diversification or asset protection from inflation, economic turmoil, or its very unique utility for barter and trade. Prepper Bar is a perfect gift for everyone, especially at these prices. Who doesn't like gold and silver? They're at all-time highs. So head over to thebigmigbar.com. That's right, thebigmigbar.com. Use all caps Prepper, P-R-E-P-P-R. That's P-R-E-P-P-R. That'll get you 10% off on the silver, 5% off on the gold. And they got them both in stock. And yes, they come with an assay report. Or you can use that QR code on the screen and take a snapshot, but don't go there. Got a great interview today. I'm extremely excited about it. So stick around. You can always head there after the show. Thebigmigbar.com.
Break me off a piece of that prepper bar.
All right. Here we go.
By the way, before we go, I know I gotta
Yeah.
get my 2 cents in. I think Trump said that about releasing the alien stuff because Obama opened his mouth the other day, and Trump's ego, he just, he wants to have Trump do it. So that's why I say he did it.
Yeah,
You said your piece. We can go now.
I always think of that part about in Gold Member. They're like, release the alien files. I always think it's a redirection. Mainstream media and the narrative has always been so controlled. I don't think they counted on the internet to do what it's doing, but so, I think you're partially right. I mean, there's no doubt that Trump doesn't like when Obama pipes in. But to be honest with you, what the hell is Obama doing? Why do we even have to listen to him anymore?
I don't know.
Well, let's talk about our interview for today. We've got a great guest, Judyth Vary Baker. She's a former teenage cancer research prodigy who in the summer of '63 was recruited to New Orleans for a covert CIA-linked bioweapon project targeting Fidel Castro involving
Hey, Judy, I'm live on my show, so I'll call you when I'm done.
Viruses developed alongside figures like David Ferrie. There she claims she fell deeply in love with Lee Harvey Oswald, who she insists was a patriotic intelligence operative, framed for JFK's assassination after trying to stop it. Not the lone gunman history. And I got to tell you, I've talked to her, and some of this framing, when you actually pull up bios, I always think the wording is interesting. I believe everything. She's very credible, extremely intelligent, very articulate, and so knowledgeable in so many areas. I've really enjoyed my interaction with her. So when you look online, you're going to find Wiki and so many others try to discredit her. And I believe there's a reason for that. I believe that she tells the truthful story about the framing of Oswald. There's no surprise. The recent document leaks, the CIA, we've learned directly that they were involved in the assassination. A lot of people believe it was because of JFK's attempt to get rid of the Federal Reserve, his plan to put us back on the gold and silver. We still question whether or not there's any gold and silver, especially gold in Fort Knox. We were supposed to get a video audit. Elon Musk brought it up. Donald Trump brought it up. None of that happened. But why wouldn't they want to kill JFK? The Federal Reserve banking, the cartel, they've been extremely powerful for a very long time, pulling the puppet strings for the United States government and many other governments for decades. But this is going to be raw and unfiltered. She says she's going to disclose some stuff that maybe she hasn't previously discussed. Let's get her in here. I love her so far. We've gotten a chance to talk on the phone many times, and I've really enjoyed it. So I think you will too.
Welcome to the Big Mig Show, Miss Judyth Vary Baker. How you doing, love?
I'm fine, thank you.
Hey, thanks
Hope
for
you can hear
joining
me.
us today.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, and Judyth, thank you so very much for joining us today. We really appreciate it. We've been very fortunate. Joanna introduced us. I've enjoyed our conversations, and I think it's so important. On this show, we go after everybody, Judyth. We take the gloves off. I don't play this Republican Democrat BS. I'm going to try to tone down my normal cursing. I'm a kid from the Bronx, and I use profanity quite a bit. But for you today, I'm going to tone it down. But I would say something about Congress and even our judiciary right now. I saw that thing about Donald Trump's tariffs today, and I'm just sick of it. Common sense would tell you that pulling in a lot of money from other countries to help with the finances here in the United States, maybe pay down debt, maybe pay back Social Security for the money they illegally took, in my opinion. But Judyth, I want to give people. Nobody really knows this story like you do. You were there. You were in the middle of it for a lot of reasons. But I want to start first with a little bit of your background because I was really impressed with your intellect. So let's talk about your early days as a gifted cancer researcher. You had lots of teenage achievements. And what made you decide to go into medical and forensic training? What kind of started you on that path?
My grandmother died of cancer. And it really affected my whole family. We're a Hungarian family, and we had very close relationships with, by the way, medical entrepreneurs, you might say, and researchers from the beginning. I was always interested in what, shall we say, was going on in the unusual world, the clandestine world. My father and my whole family had security clearance ever since World War II. And it's interesting, I think, to look back on some of what my father did. He was very well known as a teenager, even having his own radio program and so on. And he went on to go into rocketry. He worked for Raytheon, Bendix Avionics, and so on, early in the rocket development industry and so on, and in television. He was with Robert Adler up in Chicago, and he took me up there himself. I was very interested in assisting my father in what he was doing, and since he was working with so many TV sets, he had me actually building them for him. I was 8 years old, so he could blow them up, you know. So from the beginning, it seemed ordinary to me that the CIA and so on would be interested in our family because when Sputnik went up in 1956 or so, they had by the time I was 15, they were giving IQ tests all over the country.
Mm-hmm.
They're trying to find the whiz kids. That's what they called us. And they rounded us up and they started grooming us, actually.
They have always focused on high intellect individuals. They've looked at families for promising new prodigies like yourself. It's not surprising. I mean, why wouldn't they want the brightest and best? Of course, a lot of what people assume about agencies isn't correct. Having been around some of them myself, I know that, in fact, a lot of times what they portray to the public isn't the truth of what's going beyond the scenes. But I guess you had this promising scientific background, and then that kind of led to your relocation in New Orleans in the spring of '63.
Oh, well, the background, I sent you some, you might look at all the newspaper articles and things I sent you. Basically,
yeah, some of the images didn't come through. I sent over to George. A lot of the images came through as a question mark. I don't know why they didn't come through. The book covers came through, but the newspaper articles did not. So, you've had a problem with that in the past with email and the rest of that. You've had, and I think for the audience, I want to make it clear here. Judyth has been, and I've been really sensitive to that. I'm not going to, there's a lot of things I would never ask her because I would never want to put that on air, but she's been attacked. They attempted to kill her more than once. And because of that, she's had to move around, pretty regularly. She's had difficulty with email and phone calls and even interviews. Maybe let's talk about first, you moved to New Orleans and you came into contact with figures like Dr. Alton Ochsner.
All right, we have to back up or it doesn't sound possible because I was only 19 when I was sent to New Orleans. So let's back up a little bit. By age 15, Knut Mickelson, who was a CIA agent out of OSS, visited my high school because of my IQ. And he also interviewed two others at the same time. Now, what's I think important for everybody to understand is that Mickelson introduced me to funds, and my school acquired so much money, they were able to build a new building, a science and technology building. I had to go around and help fundraise it, but it happened. I got my own lab, my own private lab when I was only 15. And invented a new way to get magnesium out of seawater, an improved way over a German method, sent me to the International Science Fair. But all this time, my heart was really with cancer research. I was already doing cancer research on the side and had all kinds of help. Rockefeller Foundation sent me my first batch of mice, by the way. Now think about what Rockefeller does, that foundation.
Yeah.
So I got entangled pretty quickly. By the time I was 17, we had 2 Nobel Prize winners and 3 eminent doctors, Dr. Alton Ochsner of the Oxford Clinic, Dr. George Moore, who was the director of Roswell Park Institute for Cancer Research, the oldest institute for cancer research in America. And then we also had Dr. Harold Deal, vice president of the American Cancer Society. The 2 Nobelists were Dr. Urey. Let me go backwards. First, Robert Robinson introduced me then to the others. I actually burst into and with a fake little press card into the Science Writers Seminar. And this was, and they were going to arrest me. I mean, you have all these doctors and everybody in white coats and, suits, And here I am, a teenager, the only girl really that was there at this conference. And they were to kick me out. Okay, but Dr. Harold Urey and Sir Robert Robinson, both of them noticed that this was very unusual. Why was I there? So they sat me down at Dr. Deal's wife's table. And at lunchtime, I produced my documents, and they were astonished. Actually, Dr. George Moore, a pilot, actually flew to New Orleans and picked up Dr. Alton Oxner. And the next morning, they visited my lab. And at that time, they recognized from all the work I was doing, and I had all the documents, I had all the data. I had given mice lung cancer with cigarette products, an aerosol smoke product that contained a virus. They developed lung cancer, these germ-free mice, in only 7 days. Nobody had done this before, anywhere in the world. Well, that put me on a fast track of training. I ended up working in Dr. George Moore's own laboratory, for example. By his side, helped improve something called today the RPMI 1640 formula. This formula could grow cancer faster than anything. One of the documents I tried to send you says that I was being assigned after high quality training with Dr. Moore to discover how to make cancers more deadly. I'm sorry, it's very difficult because they told me I was being lied to. They told me that all my work in making cancer more deadly would be so we could find out its vulnerabilities. And I was young, impressed by these great doctors. These 3 doctors went around all over America contesting the use of tobacco smoking and trying to help people who had lung cancer to try and make some kind of legal reparation available to them. So when I showed them that I was using actually cigarette products to produce lung cancer in record time with these mice, these germ-free mice, and by the way, I had special contacts to get those mice. Even Dr. Moore said, he said, we've had a devil of a time getting those mice. How did you get them? But some of the documents I was going to show you, like Walter Reed, WRAIR, and the Research Institute with Walter Reed, Oak Ridge, I had access to everything I needed, including germ-free mice from Dr. James. Well, I should back up a little. I had connections with Notre Dame and Dr. James Renier from Austria, who my grandmother knew as a Hungarian, provided me free germ-free mice before almost anybody could get them.
Wow.
All right, so then I'm sent to New Orleans, and I think I'm going to be working with Dr. Mary Sherman. What's important about this is Dr. Mary Sherman is you'll see in the book called Dr. Mary's Monkey that she was brutally murdered the very same day that the Warren Commission came to New Orleans to get testimonies. That's because Lee Harvey Oswald was invaluably connected to this secret project to try and kill Fidel Castro. Lee Oswald was pretending to be pro-Castro, had a long history as a fake defector to the USSR, but when he returned after front page news that he was renouncing his American citizenship, that he would shoot any American he saw in a military uniform, quietly, about 31 months later, he's back in the United States, doesn't get arrested, and here he is. He is assigned to become a bodyguard for me and for others in this secret project to kill Fidel Castro by pretending he is pro-Castro. And he's rounding up spies and working with the FBI, sending them back to Cuba. Because of these kind of credentials, it was easy to frame him.
Just for the audience, I want to make sure they didn't miss that. So in retrospect, you're able to look back now and realize that their real intent all along with you was to weaponize cancer, to be able to weaponize it in a manner that either, aerosol or otherwise, that they could figure out a way to give somebody a rapid high level of cancer very quickly and basically use it as an assassination weapon. Is that what I want to make sure the audience didn't miss that.
You understand that we thought we were developing a weapon to use to stop World War III. That was what I was told. I was informed that, look, and I knew it was so. I lived in Florida. By the way, I dated Tony Lopez Frisquet when I was still in high school. Who was he? He was the son of Cuba's finance minister under Castro. Mm-hmm. In fact, his father was still in Cuba working for Castro. His father's name was on Castro's money. And here I'm dating this guy, and I'm learning that his father was secretly CIA.
Hey, Judyth, I'm gonna shock your mind right now. My aunt, who lived in Cuba, used to date Fidel Castro, and she left him and moved here right before he was taking power.
Well, you see, then you know an awful lot. There are things that never reach the press about Fidel Castro. For sure. One of the things that happened, like Tony was one of those, we really hit it off. And boy, did he have a fancy car. So he was cute.
Can you always get the beautiful women with a fancy car. That always helps.
He had a Ferrari convertible. All right. But that wasn't the point. I liked him because he was cute, smart, and he had, it was very interesting to me about communism. My family was so much against communism. My family was involved in the Hungarian Revolution in 1956. Now, what I want to mention about 56 again is on October 23rd, 1956, my grandmother had just died a couple weeks earlier, and we were trying to reach Hungary with our shortwave radios. By the way, that was the internet back then, shortwave radio. Yep. Everybody had one if they could get their hands on one. That's how you found out what was really going on, unless you wanted to just believe everything you saw in the news. Even back then, we didn't always agree with everything that was in the news, for example, about Hungary. So here we're on shortwave radio on the 23rd of October. And here are the Hungarians, and some of those were my relatives. They were killed, by the way. I went to Hungary and confirmed that. And Hungary, ever since, has been a friend of mine because of my loss of relatives there. So I've been able to get information from Hungary that other people can't, by the way, because I knew the Minister of Culture. But anyway, in this case, Hungary was begging the Hungarian students, please help us. You promised you would intervene, you would help us, you would support us if we did an uprising. And now they're gunning us down. You could hear the machine guns in the background. They had pulled down the statue of Stalin. They had pulled down, with their bare hands, got a hold of a tank. And they were fighting desperately. They were pulling things out of the streets, in the middle of the street, like cash registers full of money to lure somebody who was a Russian soldier would take the money and they could shoot him and things like that. And now they were being completely overwhelmed. And we were all crying because we could hear them die right there on the radio. Well, somebody else was listening. When I gave Lee Oswald some nice Hungarian breakfast and told him I had Hungarian family, he said, well, I love Hungary too. And I said, what do you mean? He said, ever since I heard them pleading for help from America, I was 17 then. It was a week after my birthday. And here I wanted to go to high school. I wanted to finish. But when I heard that, it broke my heart. He joined the Marine Corps the next day. I sent you the record. I'm sorry if you can't see it. It's on my post there, by the way, at x.com. So he joined the Marines on October 24th, 1956. But when I tried to give that to Wikipedia, they attacked me, okay? by the way, when I tried one time also to show that the Wikipedia that Lee got his GED when he was in the Marine Corps, they erased it in 6 minutes, and they erased my entire biography that had been there for 5 years on Wikipedia, for my writing, for my art, and so on.
Yeah, that is why even now, and again, I can't tell you whether or not it will be accurate. It's still too early to know, because Wikipedia started out somewhat different in the beginning. It wasn't quite what it is now. Now it seems to be a deep state kind of leftist narrative control tool where anybody that's a truth teller will get attacked. Doesn't matter whether it's you or a Roger Stone or somebody else. The profile will always include negative chatter. I even found myself, when I was using AI to get some information yesterday for this interview, I felt like a lot of times the wording they chose to describe you was offensive. I cleared out
like
a lot
claims, alleges, when
Yeah.
actually Grok did a study, and I sent it to you, but you probably haven't a chance to look at it. But the chances are like 1 in quadrillion that I didn't know Lee Oswald. And and
of course that's not true. It's obvious it's not true, because the details, they always say.
No, I mean, he's supporting me. He says it's impossible that I could not have known Lee Oswald.
Yeah. And that's the fact, right? But I also find the opposite. I used Grok yesterday, and I noticed it shows a lot of words that alleged, stated. The wording was in particular. Now, is Grokopedia going to be different so far? I've looked at some of the profiles.
We're slowly feeding information. The trouble is that unless you do deep dive, you're not going to find the right information. It just grabs whatever is the most popular. Now that's going to change. I've already given Grok information, a lot of information that is slowly going to make a difference. But we're fighting a behemoth. We really are, because if you have 50 arguments over here that I'm lying and I'm not telling the truth, and over here you have 4 arguments, and they're actually 400, but all the others are repressed. For example, I have the book Lee Harvey Oswald and Me. That book is available, by the way, on eBay. It is supposed to be available on Amazon, but after it had just a few sales, suddenly it's been banned. And they say this is not available. I sent that to you. You can see that.
Yeah, I saw that. And typical of Jeff Bezos. He's
out
done
of
a lot
stock
of that.
and not available, when of course that's not true.
Tony Lyons is he owns a publishing company, and he's been one of the ones that's often told me that it's interesting how a lot of the books that he will choose to support and promote, and he's been very successful. He works with RFK Jr. and others. That happens regularly when a book is, all too accurate. It goes against the general narrative they'd like to control. But I want to keep on track here a little bit. Which I want, and that's the thing I want to say to the audience. Judyth and I started talking about AI. We could have a whole nother show.
We definitely could
on AI, and probably we're going to. But I want to make sure we stay on track with this, because everybody always hears about the JFK assassination, like the recent file release. Probably Roger Stone has seen more documents that have never been released than anybody in history, simply because of his relationship with Nixon.
Well,
he's always been intrigued.
We are friends.
Yeah.
I can say so many good things about Roger.
Yeah. He's a truth teller.
The man who exposed the dirty tricks,
Yeah.
And showed us what was going on. Of course, that had to get pilloried for doing that as the master of dirty tricks and how bad he is and so on.
Yeah. I often say that he is the Jackie Collins of DC, having worked with so many administrations, so many presidents, been in and around the White House, been in and around all the agencies, been everywhere. He has details that I know sometimes he can't share, but he has more information than everybody. So sometimes when he makes a statement, there may be things, again, because Nixon showed him things that I'm sure at that time were still not supposed to be shown, but he had that very close relationship.
Well, and Nixon was not nearly as involved as LBJ and his cohorts.
Yeah,
that's
no
for
doubt.
Sure, and CIA.
Let's
Nixon
talk
is famous. I just want to say that Nixon is famous for saying, I wanted to be president, but I wasn't willing to kill for it.
Yeah, no doubt about it. But of course, You can't, and that's what they use on the public, right? It's the David Copperfield of, oh, it's the Republicans, oh, it's the Democrats. But really, at the end of the day, so many of them on both sides of the aisle have been involved. But I want to talk about David Ferrie.
Sure.
So because the audience, that might be a name the audience is completely unfamiliar with. I believe you even wrote a book about David, didn't you?
Yes, David Ferrie, Mafia pilot. And I knew him that well. How? You see, I wanted to be a nun at one time. My life was being regulated. I had no time to myself. Everything was crafted and like a choreographed. Now I understand a lot more about that. At the time, it just seemed, well, they're appropriating my time. I want to help my country. Sputnik went up there, and we've got to get, an advantage. And my advantage, I felt like, even though it was like metals, lightweight metals can make rockets, magnesium and all that, that cancer was far more important. And I would recognize the fact that the USSR really at that time probably was more advanced than we were. I was actually given an opportunity to learn Russian because there were retired military officers, Sarasota, Bradenton, that area. And it's far more important, that area, than I'd ever believe, where information is buried. Just ask Dan, well, he's dead now, Hopsicker, but and others, are the fact that Bush was there reading My Pet Goat in Sarasota, when 9/11 occurred, and for good reason, to keep him rather under control. There's a lot of control going on in that area. Now, I'm mentioning the fact that we have so much information about David Ferrie that people should be aware of and his value. I was going to become a nun because I wanted to kind of escape all the control I was under. And I love God. But then some incidents occurred that made me believe there was no God. So I had become an atheist. Now, here I am inserted into the same area of influence. And the man was very intelligent. He knew several languages that I knew. He even knew more. And he had a grasp about cancer. His mother, just like my grandmother, had died of cancer. At the time, I didn't know she was really dead. He just said, my poor mother and cancer to me. And when he realized that I was no longer loving God, by the way, that's changed a lot, okay? Jesus Christ came to me in a dream. And I'll say that before anything else. It completely changed my life, and it made me fearless to expose whatever I have to say. I don't care, okay? Because that's more important to me. But anyway, at that time, he was trying to convince me to become a Catholic again, and to love God. And so
what was David's role in the Castro plots exactly? What exactly was he involved in? Because during that period, you were also involved, and this is a topic we've actually discussed on the show, probably, taking some hits for it along the way, because we were involved with a lot of the people during COVID. SV40 and the cancer-related experiments. Can you tie that all together for the audience?
Yeah, I probably know more about SV40 monkey virus than anybody. This is because that's exactly what was chosen back in 1962, March of 62, when the CIA decided they wanted to kill Fidel Castro with something that would not be linked to the United States government. I mean, everybody can get cancer like that. So the problem is how to develop that. Well, they brought in this girl who was able to give lung cancer to mice with cigarette products and aerosol. That was me. And in only 7 days. And I had already received now a lot of fast track training. They knew me, they knew my ways. And I ended up running into David Ferrie, so-called accidentally, but it really wasn't. It was all staged. And Lee Oswald the same. Make a long story short, Lee Oswald was assigned to be bodyguards, basically, for whenever we had to like I had to go home from the lab, that kind of thing. Well, I've got to make it home safely. So yes, for they put us in a routine that looked normal. We had cover jobs, and David Ferrie was aware of all this. It turned out David Ferrie himself was deeply involved in cancer research with Dr. Mary Sherman. And by the way, everything I'm telling you, you look at my book, Lee Harvey Oswald and Me, and also me and Lee, the earlier one, we have witnesses galore that knew about David Ferrie and having a relationship and knowing Lee Harvey Oswald, which has been completely hidden. Rhett Accardo, for example, his father was an orthopedic surgeon who worked with Dr. Mary Sherman. He introduced David Ferrie to Mary Sherman. His father did. And we have, everything I'm telling you, I back it up. I was a scientist. I still am a scientist. And so I wrote everything down. I documented everything. I have the comings and goings of Lee Harvey Oswald day after day after day, and nobody can contest it.
Let me ask you this. I know he confided a lot about his intelligence background with you and his time in the USSR. Can you tell the audience, just to the connection, because we talk about the nefarious nature of a lot of the agencies, CIA, DIA, NSA, what they portray to the American public, and then completely different. So let's talk about directly and maybe some confirmation of how he was already connected with the U.S. government. Clearly, he wasn't somebody that would have, attempted to kill JFK. In fact, it was probably the opposite, that maybe he wanted to stop the assassination.
He certainly did.
Let's make those connections.
Let's do it. Let's start with the so-called defection. It's very interesting that suddenly Lee Oswald, who was really doing well in the Marines, and then suddenly his change of character, he's playing a game. He cannot go and be a spy like he wanted to be. Now remember, Herbert Philbrick of the FBI had put out a series. They were TV series. I Led 3 Lives. When Lee was only 11, he watched 6 or 7, he told me, of these episodes of I Led 3 Lives in New York. This is very important because Lee had no father. His father died 3 months before he was born. And he once told me, my country is my father. That's the way he looked at it. How much he loved his country. Now, Herbert Philbrick actually was a businessman, but he was an active communist in a communist cell that was working in New York City. And he actually, on the side, was relaying information to the FBI. That's why it's called I Led 3 Lives. It's real. It's not a story that was made up. The series was based on actual incidents. When Lee was just that young, he made up his mind he wanted to become a spy. And from that time on, he acquired interesting cameras. Like before he even joined the Marines, he owned a 3D camera. You take 3D pictures. He has in New Orleans on his passport, it says that his expertise, his occupation was photographer. And so you have that going. Of course, I could go into more detail on that, but I want to show you what Lee did. They dirtied him up, made him look like he hated the Marines, made sure he actually had shot himself near the elbow so that he could get court-martialed for having a weapon he shouldn't have had, in the Marines, a private weapon, so they could go and put him in the brig. We can only find like one person that says he was ever in the brig. In the brig, they put lots of people together, but we don't have witnesses like that. Actually, he was being trained on the side during that time, and he learned Russian and so on. He always pretended he didn't know much Russian when he went to the USSR. He had to be dirtied up so that Russia wouldn't say, look, this guy's a sniper. Look at, so even his shooting record went down instead of up, and so on. dirtied up, he could then be a candidate to say, I hate the Marines. They've been rotten to me. They put me in the brig. It was an accident. I got shot. No, he deliberately, and I should say courageously, shot himself so that that could occur. So here he goes in. He is trained by it's the ONI, the Office of Naval Intelligence, not CIA. He was borrowed by the CIA to go into the USSR. Why? They could always say he was not CIA that way. Now here's something peculiar. So he thought he was going to stay there forever. And so he does. So he did some unusual things. He bragged about the United States when he was in the USSR. That's not the kind of thing a spy does, right? He smuggled in Elvis Presley records when he went in.
Yeah. You couldn't have that kind of music in the USSR back then.
That's right.
And it's interesting. Do you think he had any sense? Because he probably believed that he was going to be in the USSR. He was going to use photography to send back, information here to the U.S.
He was radar specialist. Had special information about the U-2, which was classified. He handed over that information there. We had interviewed Gary Powers Jr. and also what Lee told me, he literally spoke to Gary Powers during Gary Powers' trial in the USSR. They brought him in. I didn't know whether he spoke by phone and could see him because Powers was in a glass cubicle, or whether he was able to meet him face to face. But Gary Powers himself says, I remember my dad walking back and forth, and he was looking at Lee Oswald, some years later now, several years later, handcuffed and accused of killing JFK. He said, I know that man. Well, Lee told me definitely they had met. Okay. Now, he handed over information, and there are other things that he did, and he acted very, very stupid. This was really clever of Lee. For example, he told me he was so thrilled he wanted to penetrate the Iron Curtain while he was still a teenager. He made it by 2 days, and he was proud of that. And he said, when I got in, on my birthday there, I was acting so stupid. Guess what the present was that they gave me for my birthday. I said, what? Dostoevsky's The Idiot. He acted like an idiot. And they even put him, when he went to send him to Minsk, they put him in a radio and TV factory, but they put him in the classified area. Like if he could have, maybe tried to smuggle something out because that was related to radar and so on.
Can I ask you a question? Did he have any sense that, of course, so it sounds like, he was an infiltrated spy.
Yeah.
It probably had to give him some of the U-2 plans, probably knowing that Russia already had them. They didn't release anything they didn't already have, but he had to be credible. The idea of spying is that to make a spy credible, to have him be able to infiltrate, the concept is you give him something that's really credible, even knowing that your enemy already has it. But it proves that he brought real information. Of course, that
definitely. There's no doubt.
Did he have any sense at all during this period? I don't know what your interaction was, but did he think he was getting set up by the U.S. government, or did he just think he was infiltrating?
Okay, so let me tell you, here's the thing. Also, you have to understand that he knows counterplays are happening. Bad things might be said about him in the United States on purpose. That will actually make him look better. Things like that, even later. Like if he were a double agent. Now, remember, he brought back to the United States a Soviet-born woman and her baby, his baby. Okay, there's no way she would have been released to come back at the height of the Cold War if she hadn't promised to be a spy. Now, it's very interesting what Lee did with her, because he would not let her learn any more English, and he would not let her have any friends. Now, he did that so that she couldn't spy, and you know what? She escaped prosecution by even the Warren Commission. There's no way this ignorant woman could have possibly been a spy, and that Lee did that to protect her. Now let's go back. Why did he marry her? He thought he was going to stay there forever. And he had his connections. He told me a lot of his connections were with hospitals. CIA put lots of doctors in these hospitals because that's when people are most vulnerable. You can also get their information, secret information you never get otherwise from various communists. And they're vulnerable. You can even inject them with something and get them confessed. Who knows what you can do if you are secretly a spy for the United States.
Yeah, doctors get a tremendous amount of access. That's right out of the playbook. They've been used over and over again to infiltrate different governments.
Well, Lee told me he had contact with. Now, here he came in under the Eisenhower administration. Here's what happened. When the CIA now had to present Kennedy with all their information, they hated him. They really hated this man. And now, not all, I don't mean regular people in the CIA. Lee had a lot of friends. He had friends who trusted him, okay, and everything. That hurt him in the end, of course. But they did not give all the information that Eisenhower had gotten. There were lots of information that they just did not give Kennedy because they wanted to make sure he'd make mistakes, like with the Bay of Pigs and so on.
Yeah.
There's
some stuff that has been released now that proves, in fact, Kennedy was fed misinformation quite often.
I've been telling people that for years.
They didn't like his independence. They didn't like the strength of his family at that time. Because, of course, he wanted to make some big moves. And that leads me to where I want to ask you. Every time Kennedy comes up, there's speculation about why they would assassinate him. Now, we know from the last document release that the CIA was involved, but that's kind of been brushed off by the administration. The CIA. Well,
I'll go down the litany for you, but first of all,
why do you think?
Let's finish the Eisenhower thing.
Okay, go ahead, please.
He ended up getting stranded. He lost contacts, okay, because they pulled some out. And so eventually what happened, he had to go to the U.S. Embassy and request to come back home. And they weren't going to do it. No. They weren't going to do it. Excuse me, I'm having a headphone here problem.
Yeah, it's okay.
And it was so serious that the State Department was going to deny him, admission to the United States. And then the Department of Justice under Bobby Kennedy, who found out a lot. Bobby Kennedy had to go and get information that CIA wasn't providing. He did it through the Department of Justice with the State Department. And he tried, Lee said 5 or 6 times. They finally allowed Lee to come home with his wife and child. Now get this, he had to fill out a form, get a State Department loan. In small print it says can only go to citizens in good standing. All right. This is a man who's going to shoot anybody he saw in a military uniform, according front pages when he first so-called became a so-called defector to the USSR. Now here he is trying to come back. He needs money because he's got enough for himself, but not enough for his wife and child. The equivalent he needs is about like $4,000, $5,000 to get him home. In the U.S. So what happens? He fills out all these forms. And then on page 5, I believe, of this 6-page document, there's a space that says, all right, so you worked for somebody in the USSR. Tell us about it. State what you did. The entire page is blank. And I have the documents. And they still gave him a loan. So that'll show you who Lee Oswald really was.
Yeah, of course.
And when he comes back, nobody arrests him. Other defectors that came back, they got interrogated like crazy, arrested, put in jail, not him. So when I saw him walking around, I already knew enough. I said, from Tony Lopez Frisquet told me all kinds of stuff that he had learned from his father and so on. I knew Lee Oswald was a hero almost from day one.
Well,
and he wasn't ready for that.
For the audience, this is a recurring theme. When they tell us about JFK, and they still haven't released all the files, Donald Trump, there's only been a partial release. For people that actually have seen many of the files, and I won't say who those people are, they said it's not all of them. So there's a lot of files, once again, kind of like the standard process of redacting. But the real question always comes down to this, and there's a reason I'm asking this, because there's something I want to bring up a little later.
Yes.
You've investigated as much as almost anybody I know, including you're probably at a par with Roger Stone. You were right in the mix. You were around all the people that were involved.
Roger knows,
Why did they What do you think, if you were going to give me a short list of why did they assassinate JFK?
You
we know
want
the
just a
CIA
short
was
list.
involved.
You just want a short list.
Yeah,
And you
don't give me
want-
the whole list. Give me the top 5 items. Give me the cliff notes of what you think the real reason is why they would go after a sitting president like this, why they would go after his family. It's clear that our own government internally, and call it deep state, or call it anything you want.
Number one,
Yes,
Lyndon
please.
Baines Johnson was under investigation and would have gone to jail if, in fact, the investigation was going on the same day that JFK was shot. LBJ was going to be taken off the ticket. This is a man who was so anxious to become president, he was willing to cooperate with anybody willing to get rid of JFK. That is a fact. Roger agrees. A lot of people I know, if you understood the true character and nature. By the way, when the History Channel made a documentary about me in 2003, the LBJ family is the one that pulled it off the air. Okay?
Yeah.
That's number one. All right, number two.
I want to make one comment about LBJ. I know a gentleman, or did know, he's dead now. His name was Ted Bullard Sr. He used to be part of an organization called the Texas Mafia. And he very clearly had lots of details, had pictures with him that he used to supply prostitutes and party favors for LBJ. And they would go offshore to oil rigs. They'd be flown in a helicopter to the offshore oil rig. This individual would supply all the prostitutes, drugs, and alcohol. And LBJ would go out there with his closest cronies, and they would blow it up, spend time with prostitutes. So he wasn't the individual that some people thought he was, based on
very corrupt man. Yes.
Yeah, very corrupt individual. So that, I believe there's 100% confirmation.
I'm going to give you a little aside just to show you how corrupt he could be.
Yeah.
A lot of people know who Bobby Baker is. If they look up Lyndon Johnson, they'll see Bobby Baker was becoming front page news for corruption. Okay. But a lot of people don't know is the Haiti deal. LBJ and Bobby Baker had a deal going on with Haiti, the government of Haiti, the process to take all their rotten meat, fill it with all kinds of spices and everything, and sell it to the American people. And they got like 1 or 2 cents a pound for doing this. Rotten, totally rotten, filthy meat. That's just one of the things he was involved in. I've got all these records.
All right, give me number 2. The number 2 reason. What do you think? Oh, I'm sorry, George.
Number
you were going to
2.
say something.
No, I was. That's the first I ever heard of that.
I've got so much stuff.
I'm amazed. Shocked? No, because our government sucks. But go ahead, Judith. Lay it on us.
Number 2 on the hit list. Why did they kill JFK?
CIA. What Kennedy did is he made the military in charge of the CIA, but it never went through. For example, Allen Dulles was fired along with General Cavill, all right, who's number 2 in the CIA.
Yes.
Now, the whole idea was he tried to get new leadership in there and have it go under the military government side of the government instead, okay? But actually what happened is Dulles didn't even have his desk cleaned out. A year and a half later, when Kennedy was shot, he was still there at Langley. He was still running operations on the sly. So the people that were appointed to take their place were kept out of the loop. Now, you can imagine how angry General Charles Cavill was at being fired. I mean, it's a disgrace. He was a general. Now, why CIA would actually make somebody second command who was already a general? This should never have happened anyway. All right. But imagine how angry he was and what an insult it was to his family. Well, General Charles Cavill's brother, of course, was Earl Cavill, the mayor of Dallas when Kennedy was shot. Not only was the mayor, the records came out in 2018 that he was CIA.
Weren't they responsible for changing Kennedy's route that day? They were involved in that route.
All right, that route was actually changed 2 days earlier, but it didn't get in the papers until the day before. The fact that anybody would think that Lee Oswald's deliberately got a job at Texas School Book Depository and would know ahead of time that the route would be changed to go right by the Texas School Book Depository a day before is absolutely absurd. Think about it. All right.
It was clearly strategic. A lot of people have missed that detail, but they changed the route because that building gave a perfect line of sight for a sniper. That was the connection. And of course, how would Oswald know that? Why would he get a job there in advance? Why was the route
And by the
changed?
way, it's Ruth
Who do you
Payne.
think was responsible for the route change?
That was definitely Secret Service. And we have a lot of information. We have that wink, it's called. The wink that you see Albert Thomas is giving LBJ right after he is sworn in on Air Force One.
Oh,
All
yeah,
right.
and that's a damning moment when he winks at him because it shows that there's some kind of conspiratorial relationship.
Well, I can tell you what happened.
Okay, let's do it.
Why the wink? All right. I say, ask me any question. I already said that to you. Ask me any. That wink is Albert Thomas was retiring as a congressman in Houston. And he said it was because of his very bad, precarious health. This was in March. In March, Albert Thomas made sure that Kennedy got invited to Houston for his party that he's going to have, his farewell party in November. They have plenty of time between March and November now to make sure that Kennedy will comply and will show up. Now, when Kennedy does arrive in Houston, there is a party for Albert Thomas. Albert Thomas gets on the plane with LBJ, his good friend, on Air Force Two, and they land next in Fort Worth. Why did Albert Thomas go? He was the instigator, the one who originally got the whole trip to Dallas, Texas set up. He stays with him on the plane to Dallas. After Kennedy is shot, Albert Thomas is still on the plane and will go with him back to Washington, D.C., where he will stay and be an aide, to LBJ for the next 2 years.
Clearly, the graft, that was his reward for doing what he did and his participation. All right, let's go to number 3, top reason they killed Kennedy.
The fact that Kennedy was going to go and disrupt the feds concerning currency.
Yep, I was waiting for that one.
Yeah, George is salivating over there. I can see he was waiting for the moment. We've talked about that on this show.
There is no gold in Fort Knox.
Yeah, George was convinced after that, and I don't think I'm surprised.
One of the first things LBJ did, as you know, is get rid of silver and the silver coinage.
Yeah. And we know he wanted to go back to a backed currency. He understood the corruption of the Federal Reserve. But that leads me to something.
Well, I'll tell you what Kennedy did. It's very clever. If you'd like to hear it. All right.
Yeah, I do want to hear it.
First of all, Kennedy told the AP, or he told the press, told the feds, I'm all for it. We've got to get rid of this, silver standard and all that. Okay. So here's what we need to do. We need to have something out there to incentivize people to turn in their silver certificates.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And but of course, if they're turning in one say $2 silver, 2 or 3 silver certificates, they may want silver certificates in exchange for them. So I propose, he said, and he did. Let's put out some like $5 certificates, $20.
Yeah,
he starts.
I have quite a few of those.
All right, which ones do you have?
Oh, I have all denominations. My dad actually collected a lot of that, and he gave them to me. I have some that have never been circulated. My dad kind of recognized what was going on during that time period, and he just grabbed a bunch of them.
Wait, so you holding out on me, bro?
Yeah, it's funny that I have.
He just outed himself, Judyth. You know that, right? See?
Yeah, but it's interesting. I held on to all them, and like I said, I've got a group of 10 or 20 of them.
Well,
that have never been circulated.
Kennedy didn't just print a few; he printed millions.
Yeah,
millions. And all of a sudden, the feds realized, well, wait a minute, this guy, instead of incentivizing the public to turn them in for regular, greenbacks that are simply notes, with no backing.
Yeah, fiat currency.
There are now more silver certificates out there than we had before. And they recognized the fact that this guy had pulled something on them. That did not go over well.
Yeah, I'll bet. But I got to bring something up right now because the timing on it's perfect. The babushka lady. We've got to talk about that, George. So for the audience, there was an individual, a woman. I'm gonna go.
She's alive. She's still alive. I know who she is. We're friends.
Well, I've got to ask you the link. The link that's always been kind of downplayed. First of all, she took a video that never was turned in. Nobody's ever seen the video. Her reaction when Kennedy gets assassinated is unusual. I don't know if we've made the right connection here, but online they allege that she's a Rothschild, that she is connected to the Federal Reserve family. But you say you know her, you're friends. I'd love to get her on the show. I don't even know if she would do that.
Unfortunately, she's now suffering from memory loss and all that. But I did put her on at least twice on the JFK conferences that I ran for 10 years. We have her on tape and film. I've seen her red shoes. There's a lot of stories about the shoes that she wore and so on. She kept these items.
Let's
her name is
break it down for
Beverly
the audience.
Oliver. All right, her name is Beverly Oliver.
Okay, so we've got the wrong person in these images. It's not a Rothschild. Okay,
no,
it's Beverly Oliver. That was the other person it could be. So let's talk about that because
it is Beverly.
I wanted you to break it down.
All right, Beverly is a God-loving, wonderful girl. Now, she married mafia in between, before she met her pastor husband that she's been with now for many years. For example, she had a child with him, and that little girl needed a kidney. She donated her own kidney to her daughter to save her life and so on. And there's a long history. I got to know her very well. She had a camera. Now, you have to understand about Houston. We had... you've got many companies there that are putting out prototypes, and they're often giving them to the public. So I remember Robert Baker, my husband, was working for Exxon, and we had various items that Exxon was working on that public didn't know about. And you've got various companies. All right, so she had gotten herself a prototype camera from her boyfriend. And they really picked on her because she said that she took the pictures with this camera. And you can see from side angles, she's got something in her hand. It's a camera of some kind. But it was confiscated. And when she determined and would not change the story about what kind of camera it was, they were able to go and debunk her, on that. But believe me.
Well, they acted like they made this public announcement that they needed the babushka lady to bring her camera in because they wanted the footage because she was in very close proximity. They acted like they never got the film. Did Beverly ever tell you who actually confiscated?
Oh no, she said it was agents that did it. And
was it Secret Service, FBI? Do we know?
No, they just flash something and take it. She was so young. Also, she was knew Jack Ruby. She actually worked at a club near Jack Ruby's club, but would go over there to Jack's place because she had friends there who were strippers. Now, she herself wasn't a stripper. She was a singer. And she was too young, actually, to be a stripper. I mean, they would have maybe gotten in trouble with the police or something. She's like 16. And what's interesting is what happened to her in her life. I mean, the lies about Beverly are enormous and numerous, all right? Everything to try to discredit her. She had no reason whatsoever to speak up about this after she encountered so many troubles. But she has never changed her story. It's always been consistent. And if you knew the woman like I do, who prays every day with her family and everything, and who's absolutely one of the most kind and generous-hearted people, it's just impossible. It's just like Lee. If you knew him, you'd know it's impossible for him to shoot the anybody named Kennedy. He loved President Kennedy.
Well, let's
Wait, Lance, hold on.
Yeah,
Judyth,
yes.
I have a question. Who was on the grassy knoll? Who was it?
All right, now there's someone who's come forth, who's James Files, who says he was there. I have difficulty with that. And the reasons are kind of personal in that he said that Lee Oswald was with him consistently for like 5 days in a row, right up to Thursday. I know that Lee would have told me if he was just, Lee told me he had seen too many faces. I only spoke to Lee Oswald only 37 and a half hours before the assassination, Wednesday after midnight into Thursday morning. He's telling me he's going to die. He thinks they're going to kill him.
Yeah. Well, Jack Ruby was a pretty nefarious guy, kind of a criminal entity. You wrote a bunch about the circumstances, his efforts to silence participants. It seemed like one of the agencies was using him. Do you know which agency was using Jack Ruby?
I know, yes. But it's not like what you think. First of all, Jack Ruby knew Lee Oswald and liked him. He'd known him since childhood, because Jack Ruby and you have Joe Civillo, they came, actually Ruby came down, from Chicago, the Chicago outfit, they call it. Mm-hmm. And he was supposed to get everything set up there with Civillo. Civillo got taken over by Carlos Rossello. So Jack Ruby makes many trips to New Orleans. So I got to meet Jack Ruby. All right. I have witnesses about that. So don't think that I don't. All right. When I say I've got, that I met him and everything, I've written so much about David Ferrie, and you'll see his connections with Jack Ruby and so on. Now, what I learned is that Jack Ruby is a very complex character. Now, he's rough. I have posted on X things like when Jack Ruby talked about when he was arguing with somebody, fighting with somebody, and they bit his finger, part of his finger off. And how he had to go and stop people from beating up a girl, and how he threw somebody else down the stairs. He's a violent man. He can be very violent. He was an enforcer, you might say, like that. But there's another side of Jack Ruby that people don't know about, and that was that he was really patriotic. It's very confusing to me because I knew him and I knew how people thought about him who were working in the with Lee Oswald and the group that I was involved in. And Jack Ruby was very, very worried about that Jews would be blamed for Kennedy's demise and all that, because Mossad was very involved at deep levels, not openly or not easily. I'll put it this way. They knew it was going to happen, did nothing about it, okay? They were just fine with it because they didn't like Kennedy wanting to inspect their nuclear plant and so on, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
But
they were not a fan of Kennedy.
They were not the main, they did not have to even lift a finger because Kennedy had so many people that were already willing to take him out. They didn't have to be directly involved.
Of course, you have an expertise in science, forensics, and of course, probably maybe the one you've investigated more on the historical event that happened. What do you think about, I want to hear your comments. The Warren Commission report always seemed to be what I would say questionable. Let's deconstruct for the audience. Let's talk about the Warren report.
I love George. I love your reaction.
Yeah, Lance, wait a minute. Who made the Warren report?
Well, it was the Warren Commission, but
are they part of the government?
Yeah.
Need I say more?
Yeah, you don't need to say more, but you're right. The Warren Commission report, it's troubling at best. The ballistics reports are troubling. There's a lot of stuff that's just total bullshit. Let me say it in a nice way. Go ahead and tell the audience you know enough to be able to pinpoint all the garbage that's in the Warren report.
Lyndon Johnson appointed the members of the Warren Commission.
Yeah, that tells you a lot.
And that included, wait a minute, remember what I said about who got fired, who Kennedy fired. All right.
Mhm.
So let's forget about that. Justice Warren cried and had his arm twisted to become a member of this thing to give it some kind of distinction. All right. But we've got not just Charles Cabell. I mean, we don't have to worry about, excuse me, I'm having trouble with my headphone.
Yep.
All right. But if you look, can you bring up the list? I'd rather you brought up the list of the members of the Warren Commission so I can show you not just Allen Dulles, but who else is involved.
Yeah.
And how
I
they
don't know
were
if George can
compromised.
do that. I don't know if it's one of the things that came through or not. I know some of the images did.
What do you want?
George,
Warren Commission list?
Yeah. Who's on the Warren Commission? We'll give George a minute there. You know,
Okay.
and for the audience, you have to realize that to cover up the crime that had been committed, they had to control the investigative unit. And that's the point, that the Warren Commission report is total garbage.
They
And you're going to
used
find out the
only
members
one
were hand
investigative.
selected.
Yeah, they used the FBI. Now, get this: the FBI determined that Lee Oswald was the sole person involved with the Kennedy assassination. The same day Kennedy was shot, on the 22nd. I have a document from J. Edgar Hoover where he's telling when you have you always have the head of any CIA unit in any particular city. He's telling the head of the CIA unit in Dallas not to look any further because we have the only person involved. I have that document. All right, so here you go. You got included Senator Richard Russell, okay, Jr. All right, Russell and he were buddies. And Cooper is absolutely a nobody, all right? Hale Boggs was very important to keep under leash because Boggs was in New Orleans. And seriously, the planning of most all of this occurred in New Orleans. That's why you see very little in the Warren Commission about what was going on in New Orleans, and why almost everybody I know that was involved there was murdered. Not just Mary Sherman, but David Ferrie as well, which they tried to say was a so-called suicide, as usual. All right. And many others that should have been able to testify. As for me, I had been sent back early due to objecting to using prisoners who were volunteers to be tested with the biological weapon that we had developed to use on Fidel Castro to give him cancer, the SV40 monkey virus, which is being used today in vaccines.
Wait,
What was there?
Wait. Say it again about the monkey virus.
Oh yeah, we can actually trace the work that we did. The first gain of function we ever did was the SV40 monkey virus to create a latent viral infection. The way it goes is it sits in your system long enough that nobody's going to connect it with the shot. Then 5 to 8 years later, you get cancer. We are now experiencing an epidemic of turbo cancer directly related to the SV40 monkey virus and vaccines. I recently,
and trust me, George,
in
that's a
November,
whole nother. Judith and I have discussed some of that. That's a whole nother show here. It's
It
a
is.
rabbit hole that's unbelievable. And at the end of the day,
I've got all the documents. I've got
for
the
anybody,
receipts.
if you guys start looking at real declassified information, there are multiple programs, Ocean Sea Spray, and lots of other operations. Was there a name for the operation where they were testing this weapon on prisoners? Was there a name for that?
No, well, remember, you're only given as much information as necessary.
Yeah,
It's need to know.
Compartmentalized. You
So
get the information that only up to a point.
For
somebody else
example,
gets
there were
to
at least 5 labs involved that were not connected to each other.
Hmm.
And then to make sure that they wouldn't, David Ferrie's apartment, his absolute kitchen was used. But that was okay. Remember, when I was age 15, when I was 17, my lab, it scared that Manatee High. It scared everybody so much when they saw the tumors and things on my mice. They built me a new lab under the stadium. And I've got newspaper articles and all kinds of stuff
That's
that went
crazy,
all over
isn't
the
it?
United States. because
Now,
they were so frightened of what I was doing. Now imagine, if you will, how you don't want everybody to understand that we are, in 7 days, we were getting mice with tumors as big as their own bodies.
unbelievable.
in
And we know
just a
about
week.
turbo cancer. We've talked about it on this show. We've had some experts talking
Well,
about how it's
every time, if you look at the turbo cancer, you can go, if you did an analysis, we don't have that many electron microscopes out there. For people say viruses don't exist. Well, there were only about 13 electron microscopes that were available when this project was undertaken in 1963 when I was involved. But Oxford Clinic had everything. And look how huge they are now, by the way.
Yeah. Let's talk about, for the audience, I want to share with it because I know we're going to run out of time here before long.
I wish we could go on all day.
No, we could. And that's,
I've been known to kidnap people, so
yeah. So let me go in here because I want people to hear and share what you can. I know you can't share everything. Let's talk about the significant threats, how you had to move around. You chose exile because you've been challenged, you've been attacked, you've been undermined. They've tried to discredit you.
Let's quickly. In 2007, a very important book came out called, you don't have it here, okay?
What is it?
It's 2007. This came out in 2010, me and Lee. In 2007, the book called Dr. Mary's Monkey came out. It went all over the world. And by the way, it's a bestseller. You can look it up. By the way, me and Lee have sold lots and lots, but you never hear about it because it's suppressed considerably. Well, it was too late to Dr. Mary's Monkey didn't sound very, very devastatingly dangerous, and it got loose. And we called. So I was like Dr. Judy, Dr. Mary was Sherman. We used first names. This was part of keeping information under control and so on. Well, that book exploded all over. I was teaching at that time in Hungary. I had already, because of in 2003 when the documentary called The Love Affair, the History Channel was banned after it was supposed to run for 9 years until the 50th anniversary. Instead, it got completely ripped off offline everywhere after only 5 showings. Imagine. And then I got death threats. I got hit by cars. Bad things happened to me. I have, to this day, I have very poor vision. I should be dead.
And it was obvious to you, when we discussed it, was obvious that they just wanted to silence you. You had too much information. You were right in the middle of the mix. You had also connected a lot of the dots they didn't think anybody would ever connect.
These dots connect all the way back to SB40 monkey virus again that we are working with. It became a weapon. It was weaponized. And since that was 60 years ago, imagine how they've worked with it since.
Oh, can you imagine?
This book right here?
That's right, Dr. Mary's Monkey.
Yeah.
Now, in there, you'll see a secret laboratory, Lee Harvey Oswald. He did not know who I was when he first wrote the precursor to this called Mary Ferrie and the Monkey Virus. He, Haslam's father, worked with, as I said, orthopedic surgeon. And I already said about a witness whose father also did and introduced Dr. Mary Sherman to David Ferrie. Well, when Haslam first heard about me from 60 Minutes, by the way, 60 Minutes tried desperately to put me on 3 times filming, and it was stopped by higher ups, including, well, I without going there right now, stopped 3 times. They were very worried that when they were forced to drop me, that people would think I was not a credible witness. So you know what they did? They made CBS issue to me 2 checks together worth more than $2,000 for lost time, for lost wages. They wanted to make sure that there's no way that CBS could drop me and say that I was not credible if they're giving me money. They did that for me. So
and of course that proves it. I want to give the audience, I like to give everybody time here because you've given us so much. There's a lot to digest. Let's talk about where they can buy your book. once again. Let's talk
Okay.
about your
Now
social
that one
media.
sold
Let's
out.
talk
Kennedy
about
and
your
all right,
post.
Kennedy and Oswald here has sold out. We have to update it. Okay, it was written in 2016. It actually tells a lot about what we've been talking about today. Who was responsible for taking Kennedy out? Okay, so you'll see it in this book, but it's sold out. So it's going to be reprinted soon with update. Letters to the Cyborgs is what I wrote in 2016. Some of the stories are over 30 years old. However, it was not properly, I'll put it this way, some of the stories were taken out as being maybe too far out. And now we're going to get it reprinted with those stories included because actually the first story is already coming true. I only based these stories on actual inventions we already had in 2016 and extrapolated, knowing what AI can do. And for example, back then in 2016, we already had mice that were 51% human brain. It's much worse now. All right. So you just take that forward, all these different ways of handling life and what AI has done to us. You can go to my page on @Judyth, JUDYTH, on X.com, and you're going to find God bless Elon Musk because he got my account back for me immediately as he purchased Twitter. God bless him. All right. David Ferrie.
You had been suspended in what year, Judyth? When did you get suspended on Twitter?
Oh, that was right after mentioning ivermectin in 2020.
Gotcha. Okay, go ahead. Take it from there.
And I got suspended everywhere. And by the way, I had so many death threats in I'll put it this way, between 2007, let's go back there with Dr. Mary's Monkey. When that came out, I was teaching in Hungary, and a call came to me that they were going to burn down the school if they didn't fire me. And I had made friends by then with the head of the Hungarian government because of my relatives. I was trying to locate them who had been killed in the Hungarian Revolution. And so the Minister of Culture put out see if I was safe, because of the threat on the school. And they told me I had to leave the country because somebody was going to kill me. And I had I didn't know that Hungarian Secret Service had females in it. But I found finally 2 of them gave me these warnings. And I won't go into all the details here, but I'll put it this way. Realizing I was being tracked, I had to buy a ticket to Thailand and one to America and one to Sweden. And at the same time, and I went to Sweden and tried to apply for political asylum. He said, "You're not on the list, lady. You're 65 years old. You've got eye damage. You have a service dog to help you, and you have a problem with the United States government." And I said, "Can't one person out of 300 million or so have a problem with the U.S. government?" But you know what saved me? This book in Dr. Mary's Monkey that came out in September 2007. And when I landed in Sweden, it happened to be September 11th, 2007. And when they looked me up, they found an attack against me by David Lifton saying that I was friends with Osama bin Laden. So they couldn't just deport me right away. Yeah, horrible things have been said about me, all right?
Yeah. And that's what they have to do to discredit somebody that's telling the truth. They have to undermine their credibility, their reputation. It's a multi-front war. If they can't kill you, if they can't, say you committed suicide out of depression, which of course is a standard operating procedure. I think Hillary Clinton's up to 56 or 57 different individuals that seem to be in her circle in one way or another that committed suicide. That seems to be right out of her playbook. But of course, if they can't discredit you, here comes the death. But you were able to dodge that, luckily enough, and we appreciate it.
Wasn't. Well, look, what was it? Because what happened from that time, I mean, it's traumatic to me, of course, all this happening. I was then on the run from 2007 until 2020 when I got trapped in the United States, when I came to quick 6-day visit with one suitcase, because I said, they're going to lock everything down. Well, they locked everything down one day before I was supposed to leave, and I got trapped in the U.S. and it's not. So I just decided I'm just going to open up. But can you imagine? Here's how I lived between 2007 and for the next 10 years. Okay, well, almost 13 years actually. I had to move every 90 days. Sweden kindly protected me. They did this after saying I had to go back to Hungary because that's where I first entered the EU, and that's the law. You want to get political asylum? I said, I can't. They sent me here. They didn't believe me. They said, you're going to be on the plane tomorrow. Well, 5 days went by. By the way, I was kept in a room that had 6 bunk beds, and there were 5 Muslim women in there. And because of my dog, Muslims went to...
No, I know.
Yeah, unclean, and they all left. So I had the whole room to myself. Yeah, like that.
Yeah, Muslims hate dogs. There's no doubt about it. That's one of my main issues.
Well, they're taught to hate dogs. When they get to know my dog, a lot of them change their minds, but they couldn't. Yeah. They had to be secretly petting my dog and things like that. Exactly. Anyway, so the Swedes came back and said, well, we don't know what to do. They won't take you back because they said of death threats to you there. So that's proof. So they kept me. He said, how long? He said, we can't give you asylum. You're not on the list. And, nobody believed us. So they said, how long do you need? Anyway, they gave me 7.5 months so that I could get Social Security. And from then on, every 90 days, I lived in Sweden for 90 days and then had to leave. I moved every 90 days for the next 13 years.
It's unbelievable and it's horrible at the same time. All right, Judyth, we're out of time for today. We're definitely going to have you back on. There's so many other topics I want to talk to you about that you're such an expert in. Let's just last minute. They can find you on X at Judyth with a Y, Judyth.
That's it.
Yeah, my mistake originally. I thought it was with an I. Judyth corrected me pretty quickly. So find her there. She was on X since 2009. So she has a one name, a handle, which is highly unusual anymore. It's almost impossible to get anything like that. And of course, they can buy your book, you said, on eBay. Also, your own website.
Lee Harvey Oswald and me, you can buy on eBay. Soon we'll have an update to Me and Lee, but Me and Lee is still an excellent book. But the other one helps me literally, and that's why my publisher let me publish it independently with a small publishing group so that I could pay for my medical bills, because I have had a lot of problems that have had to have corrective surgery for attempts on my life.
Well, we want to support you on this show. So, of course, anything we can do to help you with that, we're always here for you. We'll arrange maybe have you come back and talk about AI because you have a plethora of knowledge I want to share with the audience.
Yes, and it's very important. It's probably the most pressing problem we have right now.
All right. For the audience, make sure you follow her. Go buy the book. If you really want to get into details, you know what you have to do. You have to educate yourself because that's what it's about. That's how you unify the country. We get past these lies and we expose the truth. That's what we do here on this show every single episode. So don't forget to hit the follow button. If you can do the $5 subscription, great. If you can do a Rumble Rant tip, of course, that all goes back into the show. It all goes back into production. And George has always got something new he wants to do for us because he's always working a lot like a slave on the production. Not an easy job.
Thank you.
We appreciate you, Judyth. Stick around for 1 minute before you leave. Thank you for tuning in today. Hit that follow, hit the subscribe. Let us know. Don't forget to follow us on X, G. Valentine, Lance Miliaccio, and The Big Mig Show. George, last words, my brother.
It's Friday, right? Yeah.
It is Friday, baby.
All right, y'all. Have a great weekend. Stay safe out there. Stay vigilant and stay blessed. Judyth, it was an honor. Don't go nowhere, Judyth. Stay right there. All right, guys. Catch you later.
I might have to let it drop. Said got it, hella big, had to put it again, like said had to put it, hella big, had to put it.
Are you ready to stand up for your community and support your local sheriff? Join the Constitutional Sheriffs and Peace Officers Association and become a vital member of the Sheriff's Citizens Posse. At CSPOA.org, we empower citizens like you through weekly webinars, arming you with the knowledge to back your constitutional county sheriff. Together, we can uphold our Constitution and ensure liberty and justice for all. Your community needs you now more than ever. Visit CSPOA.org and join the Sheriff's Citizens Posse today. Make a difference. Stand for freedom. That's CSPOA.org. Your country, your fight, your future.
What if you could predict your financial future? And what if you could trade on it? Introducing Block Trust IRA, the future in your hands. An astonishing 88,000 millionaires were created last year from the Bitcoin boom, and you could be next. Block Trust IRA is the only crypto management firm powered by AI-driven strategies, ranked #1 in the world by Bitcoin Magazine. The Block Trust IRA platform is built for everyone, from first-time buyers to seasoned investors. Predictive AI technology that was once only reserved for insiders and elites is now available to you. It's time to leave the old buy and hold strategies behind. Your assets are protected with military-grade security, offline cold storage, and $200 million in insurance. Visit BlockTrustIRA.com to book your free consultation and ask how to claim up to $2,500 in deposit bonuses today. Bitcoin changed the game. AI changes the strategy.
Hi folks, I'm here today to introduce you to the Prepper Bar from PrepperBar.com, the most unique precious metals product we have seen in a long time. These 62-gram bars are perforated and easily broken down into your choice of 3 different sizes to fit a multitude of needs. Whether it be from asset protection from inflation, economic turmoil, or its unique utility for barter and trade, the Prepper Bar makes a perfect gift for all the precious metal lovers out there. Exclusively made here in the USA and selling out fast. Available in both gold and silver, these slim Prepper Bars fit neatly in your wallet, and their utility enables use in any situation.
Forged through rigorous training and honed by the finest instructors on Earth, these K9 units serve beside our nation's warriors as they fight to preserve what we cherish. When these warriors complete their duty, the Warrior Dog Foundation provides them with a home deserving of the service they've given us all. At our state-of-the-art kennels, they receive rehabilitation and care suitable for heroes, because that's what they are. Be a part of giving them a future today. Visit WarriorDogFoundation.org.